Welcome back to more Optimal Play, Arkham Horror, the card game, First Impressions. I'm Brandon,
I'm Steven.
and we're here. We're here reviewing the Edge of the Earth expansion and all of its more than 100 player cards. We're getting through as many as we can in one session of filming these. We did compromise our morals and we're viewing them off of our screens because it's not out in the United States yet, but so be it, I guess. Rolling with it. We just came off of the investigators. We had a pretty clear favorite, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was Bob.
Yeah. I think we were agreed that Bob Jenkins, who, it's funny, he's the salesman. He's on his face the least interesting guy to be a heroic character. Definitely with his item buying and everything, the most exciting investigator to us. So we're going into survivor cards.
Yeah.
Which will be a little weird. We've got to remember in our mind, these are not all Bob cards. Bob cannot take the ones above level 0.
Yes, that is a good point. The upgraded survivor is Daniela.
Yes. Yeah. And then, of course, there's, the context of all the previous investigators.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's going... I feel like we're going to... Or at least I'm going to make mistakes with that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're just joining us, so we've talked about the investigators. We're getting into the player cards. We're releasing these over a little longer period of time than we have with some of the previous deluxe boxes, and that's because it's going to be a year until there are more player cards, unless there are some surprise products. Maybe there's a return to box in the meantime, but yeah. So we're spacing this out a little bit. It's maybe Happy Thanksgiving by the time you're seeing this. So yeah, so subscribe to Optimal Play. Give us a like, comments. We're recording these in a certain order, but don't necessarily have to release them in that order. So let us know what class you want us to get to next. maybe that'll happen. Any thoughts before we get into survivor cards? You want us to dive in?
Do you remember Bob made me think of scavenging because he's about items.
Oh.
Do you remember how the two different scavengings worked? It's one of them put them in your hand and the other one played them. Was that it?
Was there a leveled up scavenging?
There was, yeah.
I don't remember. I wish I did, but I don't. Well, so Bob, I guess Bob's the survivor, so in theory, if anyone's scavenging, it's him. I think the least interesting thing about Bob is him playing his own items. So I don't think that scavenging really...
No, but with his signature... Well, it has to be from his discard pile, but with his signature, he can play his items for anyone.
Oh, he can play them
and
for anyone.
And then when they're used up, if he uses up a key ring, or if he gives someone else a key ring and they use it up, it goes to his discard pile, and then he can scavenge.
Assuming they replace it, right, in that slot.
Yeah, or some of them... I feel like some of them just automatically discard.
I think that's the minority of them, but... I don't know. I'm not seeing recursion as a big factor in Bob's.
I don't know. I feel like the reason that they gave him the 4 intellect was maybe so that he can scavenge a lot of items. So anyway, I'm curious if there's going to be more effects that come with that.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
Well, what are we starting with?
We are starting with Short Supply, which is my beer compared to yours.
Oh yeah, all right. I'll work to catch up.
So it's a talent, it's a permanent, limit 1 per deck, purchase at deck creation, so you cannot get it later. Forced, when your first turn of the game begins, discard the top 10 cards of your deck.
You can only pray that it's enough. Well, boy, is my face red about recursion not being a thing, huh?
I had sort of seen this, so I was...
Yeah, I think this wasn't a preview article. Yeah.
People were definitely discussing this online. And this, unlike a lot of discard effects, does not say shuffle any weaknesses back in. So this is a true crapshoot. You might hit your weakness. You might hit your signature. Truly, luck of the draw type of situation.
And let's revisit what you're saying about Bob and recursion, scavenging in particular, but recursion being a part of how you'd play him. It's disastrous if this hits his signature, right? That's not an item. And it's not a survivor card. Is there any way he can recover that?
Oh wait. Oh yeah, because resourceful. There's
the survivor event that gets a level 0 card. Is it considered a level 0 card for that purpose? it's a signature asset. It doesn't have any. It has the crescent where the pips go.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm not even sure it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're playing an investigator where their asset, where you A, can't get it easily from the discard pile, and B, it's really important to the way they play, I don't think you want short supply.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, I mean, if you wanted to do it, the way you could do it is, so if you're playing a lot of assets, you've already chopped off a third of your deck. If you're able to draw through your deck and you have a lot of assets, the next shuffle of the deck will be pretty small. So you'll find the signature on the second shuffle pretty quickly if like your whole deck is items and they're all in play. But it's definitely a little bit riskier of a strategy.
Yeah, but even, I mean, survivors don't draw a lot of cards really with their own cards usually, keeping this as a Bob centric discussion, he's a rogue and rogues also don't draw a lot of cards. So if you think your average game where you're not a big card drawer, you're only drawing like 20 out of 30 cards in your deck, and so getting rid of 10 means you're gonna hit the end of your deck right around the end of the game. You're not gonna cycle it and redraw. But there are definitely other survivors like Yorick.
This is a fantastic Yorick card. Really good.
Definitely survivors who this is extremely exciting. I'm wondering if it's useful for like Doomed and those weaknesses you don't really want to hit, but kind of not, because it's just as likely to bring you closer to drawing them as it is to stop you from drawing them. So I'm not actually sure that.
But it is true that, yeah, if the signature is not important, survivors have lots of ways to get everything else back, like resourceful. Like, Yorick, if he loses his signature, it's like, okay, maybe a third of scenarios you don't get that extra XP. But like, that's not the end of the world.
Well, and Survivor is also the class of cards you play literally from the discard pile, right? Like Winging It.
It's fantastic for Winging It.
Excellent card with Winging It, or
a lot of the other ones besides Winging It didn't get a ton of play, but now they maybe will with short supply.
One that I've played in our standalone games on Twitch a little bit is A Glimmer of Hope. That's the wild icon skill card. It's not a skill card. It just functions like one because you can't play it. It's an event. You use it for its skill icons, and then you play it from the discard pile, and that returns all of your copies of it. And it's myriad, so you can have 3 copies. Starting with 1 or 2 of those in the discard pile via short supply, I think adds a lot of value to what you can do with that. Versus usually it's like, well, I only drew 1 this game. It wasn't very useful. Interesting. What do you think of this? How do you like the 0 XP permanent card as just kind of a thing for the game? I could be wrong, but I actually think I've kind of absorbed the information that every class might have one. We might, or at least some of the classes. There's more in this box, I think, than just this one. Like, do you like that?
I mean, it does let you build around it right from the beginning. I'm not quite sure why they need to purchase a deck creation limitation. Like, if someone decides they want to spend, well, I guess with a permanent, I guess adding a permanent that's free to your deck wouldn't cost 1 XP.
No.
Right? It's just
no, I don't think it would, even if you were to Shrewd Analysis, I think, is the only level 0, right? And that's the one that lets you identify secret cards at random, but at a 2-for-1 price. And that one, it's funny, that one I have just always, I usually forget to technically add it to my deck on Arkham DB or have the card on the table, but I just, say to my friends that I play Arkham with, I'm like, if my deck can run this, I'm considering it to be there, because there's no downside. Literally no downside. This is almost similar. The downside is, there's not that much downside. Because the 10 cards you mill could just have been the bottom 10 cards of your deck.
And I think, the only downside would be, the only thing I could see is if you're doing a lot of cards that cost XP that can be played from the discard pile, if it didn't have that text, maybe you wouldn't take it till the second or third scenario. But honestly, I think that they could leave out the purchase of deck creation text. I don't think it's really important.
Agreed. Yeah, and I think that's the only time you wouldn't run this. Honestly, is all you need to do is put a card in your deck that cares about the discard pile. Resourceful, Glimmer of Hope, whatever it is. If you have a card in your deck, because the downside to this is like so minor as to be almost imaginary. Like it feels bad to discard your important card, but that doesn't actually mean you would have drawn that card anyway.
Yeah.
It's like almost a fallacy to consider that a bad or a bad thing about this card. So I think only in decks where there are certain cards that are absolutely critical to your playstyle do you not run this. Otherwise, I think it's an auto include.
Now, one question: would you run this in any of the non-survivor mains? Like Agnes doesn't really care about her signature, but also doesn't necessarily have as much recursion as a full-on survivor.
Like, yeah. So, that's right. I recall this is I recall this being previewed now because I remember I actually got pretty swept up in like debates about this on Discord because there were some people who this will create moments that feel bad where you hit both copies of that card that you really didn't want to hit, and again, it's a fallacy, I think, to consider that a reason to not run this card. But there are some people who will just not want to take that chance. But the other thing you gain is information. Right? Like you now know your deck is 20 cards. You now have a narrower set of cards that it could be if you choose to use your action to draw. And that, if you are paying attention to it, could really inform your gameplay in a way that, it's subtle, but can lead you to making better decisions.
Yeah. So it's like, take, say, Shriveling and Agnes. To your point, there's not really a big difference between milling both copies of Shriveling in the top versus like them being the bottom 10 cards of your deck. I mean, maybe if you're playing Arcane Initiate, it's slightly different, but and so maybe it's actually good to know immediately, I'm not going to have either copy of Shriveling.
Yeah.
Then to have them stuck in the bottom 10 cards of the
exactly.
deck.
To keep looking for them and not finding
maybe
them.
You're not playing your Wither because you're still hoping to draw Shriveling or something. Whereas it's like, now, I saw that both copies were discarded, so I'm going to play my Wither even though I don't really like it as much as Shriveling.
Yep. Yeah, I think that information is valuable, and I think it's kind of it's like a little bit of a high skill ceiling thing where how you affect your decisions based on that knowledge of what's in your discard pile will vary from depending on how good you are at the game. But yeah, I think it's all upside. I think only when it's just like hitting that one card would just make my deck useless. Yeah. Only in those situations do you not run this. Otherwise, put it in every deck it can go in.
Yeah.
Next we've got Schaffner's Catalog. This is a charming little picture of a woman in the park reading. Is this Stella? Doesn't Stella wear a similar hat to this?
Yeah, it's kind of Stella.
Yeah. And it's a catalog. All right, it's a 2-cost asset. That's an item and a tome. Something about survivors getting these like everyday like pamphlets and stuff and them being tomes is very funny to me. I like that. This uses 5 secrets, and this one does get discarded if it has no secrets. That's something we were wondering about earlier. You may spend secrets on Schaffner's Catalog as resources to pay for item assets played by any investigator at your location. Oh, so this is an econ card for items specifically.
I mean, it's only an emergency cache as pure value.
Yes, it's a 3, right? It's a 3 resource.
If Bob plays it for -1 with his signature, then it is 4 econ.
True. Yes, yeah, that's right. If he's paying 1 for it, or if you're Yorick pays for the assets he gets back into play from the discard pile. Huh? I was talking about if you're recurring it. Oh, weird.
But unlike an emergency cache, there's more ways to recur this. Like, you can use Yorick to recur this. You can't use that in emergency cache.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Between Yorick being able to do it, Resourceful being able to get it because it's a Survivor card. Yes, there's a lot of ways.
Can get it.
A lot of ways to recur this. It's also my mind had kind of assumed it was a hand slot because it's a tome. It's not though. It's slotless.
Oh, that makes it a lot better.
Which almost seems like a misprint or something to me because the idea of a slotless item is so weird. Has that ever happened?
Yeah, I can't think of one.
Yeah.
I think what it must be is that the playtesters, they really liked using this in Yorick, and they found that if it took a hand slot, it's just like he needs those for weapons. So
and I get it. It's like a catalog. It's nothing. You just stick it in your pocket. But something's weird about that to me.
Yeah, totally. You're right. That is it went from like a good card in like Bob to like now actually a good card in probably most.
A lot of them, yeah.
Or a lot of survivors.
Yeah, depending on how many items they're playing, but I think most characters play items, so
Well, and
yeah.
also it's like if you are fantastic Preston card. It's another way to use his
Hmm.
resources to pay for other people.
Oh yeah, to take his inheritance resources, spend them when they might have even gone to waste, and then let other people take advantage. Yeah, yeah, awesome Preston card. Huh, I like it.
Next, we got Bandages, a 2-cost asset, also an item. It's got 3 supplies, and it automatically discards when it has no supplies. Reaction: after an investigator or ally asset at your location takes 1 or more damage, spend a supply to heal a damage from that card. So it can heal allies as well.
So it's 3 heals. It's like similar to first aid, including this is another item that's slotless, so
Yeah.
that's a trend here. Yeah, it's similar to first aid, but it's cheaper, right? Two. I think first aid costs more than 2. It might be 3. Um, but this must be triggered when the damage is taken. So it's much more narrow. You can't just use it, like you have to be there, right? If you want to heal someone else, you have to have been present when they got hurt.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty limiting. But the upside is that it's not an action. Isn't first aid an action to spend a supply from it and heal?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like first aid is. I can't remember the stats on first aid. I feel like it might
Yeah.
be better, but.
I think in general, healing cards have been pretty bad in this game because
Yeah.
so many good cards also can soak damage in horror, and that's just better. You just get to play an ally with soak, and you're getting that healing equivalent and whatever else the card does.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that this is binder fodder. That's my expectation.
It may be something where certain Bob decks that are trying to like hit a threshold of items for like backpack put this in at deck creation, and then you take it out when you get better items or something like that.
Yeah, and I guess Bob does recontextualize this because A, he wants to play a lot of items. B, he can play this if he has a signature. He can play this for other people.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to be there to trigger the healing if he just gives it to the person who's probably going to need the healing. Yeah, so maybe it's for him. Otherwise, I think it's pretty lousy. I don't know. What I'm sure is better is Jury Rig, a 0-cost event. And the reason I'm like furrowing my brow at this is that it's an event that says uses 3 durability. So right there, that's weird. An event with uses. Moving on, attached to an item asset controlled by investigator at your location. During a skill test on the attached asset, spend 1 durability. You get +2 skill value for this test. If it ain't broke, make it better.
This is really weird because it has nothing to do with durability and it has nothing to do with making up for the weakness in baseball bat, despite the art being
a bat with nails in it. Yeah.
I really thought that this was going to be something that made it so your baseball bat doesn't get discarded when you
Doesn't
get
break,
one of the bad
yeah.
tokens.
Well, I mean, that would be a very specific, very specific effect.
Well, but
there's not that many cards that work that way.
But it like I thought that would be at least part of the card or something.
Yeah.
Like
I will say that if you combine this with baseball bat, like it does deliver on the art. It makes the baseball bat like more likely to do damage.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it more durable. You're
Yeah.
right. The uses 3 durability is a little weird. It's interesting that it's not, despite the art, like our mind jumps to weapons, right?
Yeah.
But it's not just weapons.
that's a really good point.
So like lockpicks
Yeah.
can be jury rigged to make it less likely that you lose those charges or lose those supplies, whatever it is on lockpicks. It's very flexible, and I'm having trouble. Like I'm sure there's lots of ways to use this that I'm not thinking of. But at the same time, is +2 3 times on a very specific asset like going to use a card slot in your deck?
I really dislike this weird counter on this plus counter on the item. I guess they had to do it because you could put it on like a melee weapon.
Yeah.
But like it bugs me that like if you build some deck around getting your flashlight to like 6 charges, that this only boosts 3 of them. Like that just seems too complicated that you're tracking your flashlight charges and your jury rig charges. I would rather that if you are able to pull off that combo, that you get +2 for all 6 of your flashlight charges.
Right. Yeah, this maybe could have been like you just play it and it goes to the discard pile, then you can play it again from the discard pile and it gets shuffled into your deck or something like that. Like you just play it when you want the +2, and get it multiple times that way or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not high on this card. What's next?
Next up is Bangle of Jinxes. This is a 2-cost 1 XP card. So again, we are out of Bob territory.
Yeah, it's not
into
okay. Not for
Daniela
Bob.
territory.
Right.
Item Charmed and Cursed. It's got 1 charge. As a fast action, you can spend a charge to get +2 skill value for this test. Limit once per test. And then as a reaction, after an enemy attacks you, place 1 charge on Bangle of Jinxes.
Oh, this is a Daniela card.
Definitely. Wow.
Oh, I think this is pretty good. Daniela, so I think at this point, Guardian is probably the class that cares the least about its accessory slot. There aren't any really like must-have accessory slots for Guardians. So I say that as to mean Daniela doesn't have like a Guardian card competing for that slot.
Yeah.
And then I think Survivor's also they don't have too many critical accessories. They definitely have options. I'm a fan of Nightmare Bubble. Yeah, every time you get attacked, which is with Daniela often once or more per round, then you get +2 on any test. It doesn't have to be fighting an enemy or evading an enemy. Could help you with the treacheries.
Now, it does not say after an enemy attacks you, even if it was canceled. Does that mean that if you cancel it, you don't get the charge?
I remember when I played Daniela, there were other cards that I had the same question about. I can't think of an example, but yeah, we ended up, I think, I don't even remember where we landed. We had to just kind of make a ruling in the moment because we were literally streaming on Twitch and couldn't really slow down to like send in an FAQ question to Fantasy Flight, you know? I don't know the answer to that. But I actually found with Daniela that actually this is an intentional thing with the way I built her. Even though her ability works when you do cancel the attack and she has access obvious to cards like dodge, I just gave her soak and healing rather than cancels. Yeah. And then this is a non-issue.
Yeah.
And that worked just fine. She did great that way. So yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but I also don't think you need to build Daniela that way.
Yep. Makes sense.
Cool. Next we got, so I guess we're yeah, as long as these cards are sorted by XP, we're done with level 0 cards. Yeah. I feel like that happened fast.
Much,
yeah, I feel like not a lot of level 0. We got up there pretty fast. Next is Burn After Reading. Yeah, this is familiar because this was designed by the Council in Exile. I think that was Gen Con 2020 was online, right? Because of COVID. So this was like it was like a live stream where the community got to vote between options to end up piecing a card together, which then they presumably play tested. Anyway, what came out was Burn After Reading, a 1-cost level 1 Survivor event with pretty sweet art where the guy is torching a book that he's still holding. It seems like you could set it down before you do that, but we'll take it. It's an insight. It says exile a level 0 through 5 card in your hand, which I guess just excludes signatures and weaknesses. Discover 2 clues at your location. If the exiled card was level 2 or higher, remove 1 doom from the current agenda. Exile Burn After Reading. Oh god, okay. So exile, briefly, because exile is a mechanic in Arkham that I haven't used much. Like, it tends to be not great. So my mind went, since I've played lots of Magic the Gathering, my mind went to Magic, which that just means remove it from this game.
So as a reminder, exile removes it from your deck. The next scenario, you can put in a level 0 card for free to replace it. You do have to replace it. You cannot use this card to like make your deck smaller over the course of the campaign. Or you can spend 2 XP to put in a level 2 card or whatever. So it is exile is one way. If you have level 0 cards that you no longer want and you want to replace them with different level 0 cards, like exile can be a good way to do that.
Yeah.
Although you're spending an XP for this, so it's...
And you're exiling this.
Yeah, so you're basically... Yeah, so I mean, every time you use this, you're spending at least 1 XP.
So, you play this. If you exile a level 0 card, it discovers 2 clues at your location. But even if... So, when you exile a level 0 card, you can just add it back again, right? After the game?
Yeah.
So, it's like discarding a card. But is that any good? A 1-cost event that exiles itself and discards another card just to discover 2 clues? That seems bad to me. And then exiling a level 2 or higher card to get the 2 clues plus a doom? but you've basically spent at least 3 experience on that. Also seems bad.
Yeah, I think there's a 2 cost exile card that removes a Doom. So that's cheaper.
Yeah.
That is a cheaper way to remove a Doom, because this one is essentially 3 XP, and you have to have both cards in hand to remove a Doom.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
and you do
right.
get the 2 clues.
Yeah, so if you're trying to use this to like sculpt your deck, if you have in mind what that level 2 card is that you don't mind losing, it still has to be in your hand at the same time as this during a game. Oh, I think this is crap. I don't think this is good at all.
It's a weird effect. It ends up just kind of combining a couple of other like survivor effects that I don't. It's just a little more complicated to use than just using those cards individually.
There is a survivor permanent card that changes the way exile works a little bit. Do you remember the details of it? I've never used it.
That's a great, there's a card that I think makes it cheaper to rebuy exiled cards.
Yes, it has to be like the same card you just exiled you can buy back for less experience.
Something like that. So maybe if we're doing that, this is good.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that, I think it's like a level 5 card or level 3 exceptional or something like that, to where you have to use it a good number of times for it to be worth the experience you spent on it. And I kind of think that came out shortly before the event where the community designed this. So I wonder if the voters on the stream were like setting out to add some more value to that permanent card with this design. Maybe if you're going for an exile deck, an exile archetype, this is part of it, but I don't know. I think bad job, Council in Exile. I disapprove.
Now, I would like it more if it also played the card that you exiled. Then maybe it'd be a pretty cool card.
Oh, wait. Well, if it also plays, so it would have to be like an event then to like.
So it would say like play a level 0 to 5 card in your hand. That card gains exile or something, and then the rest of the card.
Sure. That'd be wonky. It would have to be events. It could only be events, right? Because assets.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yes, it has to be an event.
That would be interesting. That'd be quite a one action. You'd be doing so much stuff.
And why not? Next card is Strength in Numbers. It's a 1 XP skill with a wild icon. It's got innate and synergy. Strength in Numbers gains a wild icon for each different class among cards you control.
This is what I was talking about last video, yeah.
Okay.
Watch my back, will ya? In fact, watch my front too.
So Bob can't play this. I was going to say he could grab an item of every class, but he can't play this.
No, he can't play it. It's level 1.
Bob could help Daniela get an item of every class, and then she could play this.
I mean, so... yeah, it's hard to evaluate this. We know that there are lots of multi-class cards in the box, and I think that this is in the box because of that.
So how does this work with multi-class? Because I actually have no idea.
So multi-class, and they have to be cards you control. So multi-class cards have the icons of 2 or at least 2 classes on them.
Okay, so they would
count. And so they would count, right?
Classes.
So if you're playing, I mean, let's use since we haven't looked at those yet, let's use the cards we know about. If you're playing level 0 Grizzly Totem, right? Mm-hmm. That is Survivor and Rogue. So if that's your only card in play, then this gains 2 wild icons because you have 2 classes in play. That is my understanding. Mm-hmm. And I like this because one of my big complaints about the multicolored cards, especially at level 0, is that they might as well be neutral, right? Like, because so many investigators can splash them when you look at all the investigators that can splash multiple classes, and the fact that that card is multiple classes, just almost everyone can play them. Yeah. This at least gives another purpose to them being multi-class that I think is interesting. Is this card any good? Like, it doesn't do anything except being a few wild icons.
I mean, most of the time when you're spending XP on a skill card, it also has a pretty good effect.
Yeah.
So this really has to be, I feel like, 4 wilds or more to justify the fact that it's an XP with no effect.
You have to have 2 classes of cards in play, paid for on the table, in order for this to be better than Unexpected Courage, level 0, right? And then, yes, if you get up higher, it can get better. But I don't know. I like this design space of rewarding you for having a variety of classes. I like how it interacts with the multi-class cards. I don't know that any number of classes can make this good.
Yeah, I mean, the one is maybe Patrice likes to have a lot of skill cards because she's trying to dump her whole hand. It's like maybe her.
Yeah, it's hard to see spending experience on this. Dauntless Spirit. Lots of level 1 cards. Okay. Dauntless Spirit is a level 1 survivor skill. It's innate and developed. While Dauntless Spirit is in your hand or committed to a skill test, which seems like most of the time, but anyway, it gains willpower icons equal to your combat and combat icons equal to your willpower. This day just keeps getting better and better. This has a lot of words for like not that interesting in effect.
So it's a 4 combat for Patrice, but also if she wants to use it as a to just boost her existing will, it's 2. So like it's decent.
I mean, we said up front like these leveled. This is the box where the leveled up survivor cards are for Daniela, and Daniela does have good combat and good willpower. So this is maybe a Daniela card. That said, again, though, spending experience on skills that don't do anything but give you plus X on your test is like not a priority for how you're spending your experience.
Yeah.
So
it is true.
Yeah, I'm not sold. This art strikes me as kind of weird too. It's like kind of like it's got like black outlines. It's very like comic booky.
Yeah, it's definitely a different art style.
Yeah, I don't hate it, but it's a little out of place to me.
Yeah, I think for Daniela, I was going to say that she prefer Vicious Blow too, but she can't take it.
Right.
But she would probably prefer the Survivor combat card that does 3 damage if you don't use a weapon.
Yeah, brute force. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's good enough for Daniela. She is, since she's buying Survivor cards, she, like survivors, will end up buying a lot of cheap cards, right? Because there are not a lot of expensive Survivor cards.
True.
So maybe this does make the cut because it's Survivor, but I don't think it's a great card. You're up, right?
Yeah. Blood will have blood.
Ooh, that's ominous.
1 cost, 2 XP event. Will and fight icons. It's a pact and it's cursed. Fast, play after an enemy attacks you. Max 1 per attack. Damage and horror from this attack cannot be assigned to ally assets. For each damage and or horror you took from this attack, draw a card. Oh. That's fun. So
okay. This is so it's a lot like I've
there's a Nathaniel Cho card that's like take after you get hit, draw 2 cards.
Oh yeah, is that live and learn, something like that?
It's not
lessons learned. He does a lot of learning.
It's like grit
on
or something
cards.
like that, I think.
No, true grit is just soak. He doesn't do anything else. What this reminds me of is I've Had Worse, the Guardian card that cancels damage or horror you would take, and you gain that many resources instead. This doesn't actually cancel it. In fact, it makes it quasi-direct, where you can't put it on your allies. But then you draw cards, which the game tends to treat card draw as a little more valuable than resources.
Yeah. So it's like probably on average getting you 3 cards, because like you're probably not going to do it on a 1 damage. You might occasionally do it on 2 damage, and you might occasionally wait till like the big boss that does 4 damage, but like you also kind of want your draw a little bit earlier than the last boss.
Yeah, and it's costing you a resource and a card to draw a few cards.
So yeah, 1 cost, 2 XP for 3 draw. It is fast, but you don't have total control over when you play it.
Again, its mechanics points towards being a Daniela card, but I don't know if I would play this in a Daniela deck.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like she
doesn't need late game card draw, which is kind of what this is.
Exactly. Yeah, you'd much rather if it was 3 card draw at the beginning of a scenario for Daniela, but like the early enemies generally don't do 3 damage.
Well, and in the very early game, there may be no enemies.
Yeah. But I mean, maybe if you have tons of awesome skill cards or something, there's some deck that like wants to draw 4 cards against the final boss and then commit a bunch of skills or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. If you have a lot of card draw, skills get better, which does recontextualize the last few skills that were just stat boosts. Like, the more card draw you have, maybe the more interested you are in skills that are not doing a lot of different things, that they're just boosting your skills. But
if you have a lot of card draw and you're committing 3 skills, you don't actually need all of them to give you 3 icons. Like, if they all give you 2 icons and do a thing, that's still 6 icons.
Yeah.
So I would rather they all do something.
Fire Extinguisher. Now we're talking, kind of, right? This is a leveled up version of a fairly old card that I don't think got a lot of play.
Wait, this is different. I think, isn't this a different art than the one that we're thinking of? I feel like I don't remember this art. Or maybe...
Actually, yes. I think this is different art. You know how the revised core set changed some of the art? Was Fire Extinguisher a core set card that maybe got its art changed?
Maybe.
No, except Fire Extinguisher Exiled, right? Which didn't come in the core set. I think that came later.
Was it called something different? Is this actually like a different card?
I don't know. This is weird. This is like, I don't know if there's some like Mandela effect here where we both remember there being a Fire Extinguisher and there wasn't or what. But anyway, this card is a level 3 survivor asset that costs 2 resources. It's an item, a tool, and it's melee traded. Takes up a hand slot and has an action to fight. You gain +1 combat and deal +1 damage for this attack. Or you can, as an action, discard it to evade. Automatically evade all enemies engaged with you. You may exile Fire Extinguisher instead of discarding it to discard each non-elite enemy evaded by this effect. So yes, I'm positive there's a Fire Extinguisher because I remember it exiling. I don't remember in great detail what it did because I don't think it was very good and I didn't play it much. Do you like this card?
So let's see. As just a fight, it's basically a machete without the like engage requirement.
Yeah, it's level 3, but like that's good. That's a good fight ability to have no ammo or anything.
And then the discard effect could be useful. Like discard to automatically engage all enemies engaged with you. Especially, I mean, there's lots of recursion in Survivor.
Yeah, I like that says you may exile for a really good effect, right?
Yeah.
Discarding all the non-elite enemies at your location, or rather engage with you, is really good. But also, it's a good card if you don't opt to exile it.
Yeah.
I think it's actually still pretty strong. I think I like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to think about it is like the first effect, if you take this card, you're prepared to do that like all the time. Like you're maybe not taking... the butcher's knife or the 5 XP sword or whatever. You're like making this your main weapon.
Like maybe, but if this is your main weapon, then the discard, like you would not discard it. It kind of needs to be. You kind of need to have other options to make the discard like a feasible option.
Well, like this could be your main ammo-less weapon, I guess.
Sure.
I should say.
Yeah.
Like, and so you use the first ability you use all the time. The second one you use maybe once per game. You maybe use it because you drew your chainsaw or because you have a resourceful in hand. You can get it back right away. And then the third thing you maybe only use like once or twice in a campaign.
Yes.
Because 3 XP is a lot.
I mean, yeah, so we're, for obvious reasons, talking a lot about Daniela with these leveled up Survivor cards in this box. This could end up being like one of Daniela's main weapons, right? Because she can't take leveled up Guardian weapons. So this all of a sudden becomes like a very solid card for her. It leaves her other hand open for a gun or something, a level 0 gun, but for the most part, but still. And then she also likes to potentially be engaged with multiple enemies, making that evade or even the exile like pretty interesting. I think it's going to be a really good Daniela card, and I think it's an all-around good card. I think in a after a series of Survivor cards I didn't think very highly of, I think this one's great.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Oh, I haven't seen this in a while. Okay.
So next we got Plucky level 3.
Yeah.
It's got a ton of icons, 2 will and 2 books. So talent and composure, fast, limit 1 composure in play. Ooh, you permanently get +1 will and +1 book.
Wow.
I don't think any composures we've seen before do that.
No, so the composures were a cycle of cards in, I think it was the Carcosa cycle, because that dealt a lot with sanity, and they all had like, maybe it was even 1 sanity or something soak on them, and then you had to assign sanity to them before your investigator. And so they were like a cheap talent that was hard to keep in play.
Yeah.
And this is a lot easier to keep in play because it has better soak. Did you even get to that yet?
So, non-direct damage and horror must be assigned to Plucky before it can be assigned to your investigator card. So that's the same as the other ones. As a fast action, spend a resource to get +1 will or +1 book for this skill test. And it's got +1 health and +3 sanity.
Yeah, and it still has, so you still have to put So now it's damage that risks knocking the
Yeah, so I guess that
yeah.
So I was thinking like, wow, this is way, way better than the original, but it does have one downside.
It still has the same. It still has the same threat of being discarded. It's just damage instead
well, it
of
actually,
horror.
and it sort of has more in a way, because with the other one, it's like if you took Pluck in your deck, you knew that I have to have horror soak out at all times.
Mm-hmm.
So I play Pete Sylvester, or maybe I play Cherished Keepsake or whatever. With this one, you now mostly have to worry about health, but you still have to worry about sanity a little bit. So
Yeah.
it does increase the number of like soak that you potentially have to put in your deck. But otherwise, it's crazy.
The fact that it's a slotless, fast, 0 cost +1 to each of 2 skills card, I think that these have got to see a lot of play, even if they don't last until the end of the game. You know,
Yeah.
this seems really good. Also, this is a minor observation, but it's funny to me that they have spend 1 resource, you get +1 will or +1 intellect, when all of the other talents have always had them as 2 separate abilities, right? Spend a resource, get +1 will, spend a resource, like finally they ran out of space on the card and they're just like, all right, well, let's make it 1.
Yeah.
They always could have done this, but it's just templated differently to save space.
Yeah.
I wonder if we'll see this, because this was a cycle. Every class had a composure, right? I wonder if we'll see all 5 in this box.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, this is another upside of the box. When there's something like leveled up talents, which are not that interesting of cards, taking up like half a Mythos pack because it's 5 out of 10 cards, that always drove me nuts.
Yeah.
When it's the one big box, I don't mind it as much.
Yeah.
It's a drop in the bucket. I feel better about this. I like that.
I really like the original Plucky in Rita, because those were 2 stats that I feel like she could always use benefit from. So I definitely could see this in her. And Patrice also, like, she loves more will because she's like kind of a mystic. So
sure, yeah,
and then
these are very much Patrice's
any
stats.
survivor that investigates.
Yeah,
like,
and willpower is good for everyone, right? because it's the primary thing the treachery deck tests. So, yeah, I think this is a great card. And then this looks like it's our last card for Survivor in the box is Fend Off, a card that's familiar because we got to preview this one as well.
Yep.
So this is a level 2 Survivor event that level 3 2 cost Survivor event. It's a gambit and trick. It's fast, and you play when a non-elite enemy spawns at your location. If that enemy attacks you, then automatically evade that enemy and attach Fend Off to it, and it can't ready. We also played this in that standalone game where we played Daniela and the other cards that we previewed on Twitch. I thought it was pretty good. Have you? I guess we've talked about it before. So obviously you haven't played it. What? Remind me what you thought of it. I guess it probably hasn't changed.
I can't remember what I thought of it.
What do you think about it today?
I mean, 3 XP and an attack for them to not ready. It's a little bit expensive.
Yeah.
And
it's like, it seems this I think is Calvin pictured on the card, right? Like. Mm-hmm. In the early game for Calvin, he's more than happy to get attacked and rack up his damage and horror. So it seems like a great card for him. For Daniela, I have mixed feelings about it. It seems to be it sounds like a card she would like because it says that enemy attacks you. Mm-hmm. But also this evades it. This practically neutralizes the enemy, which means Daniela's ability actually doesn't matter that much because you could either do 1 damage to that enemy or automatically evade it. Mm-hmm. Both of which are kind of redundant with this just permanently locking it down. So I'm not actually sure it's a Daniela card. I'm not really sure who else would take this besides Calvin. Mm-hmm. But it does have a lot of potential. Like, it can do really big. It can take care of a pretty bad, pretty rough enemy.
Yeah.
And kind of I one thing that I thought of when we were when we finally played with it is that I like it better than, like, the clear comparison is Disc of Insomnia, right? The Seeker card, that when an enemy spawns on top of you, you can discard it to discard that enemy from play. This leaves it in play where if it's a victory point enemy, you can come back when convenient and get that victory point. Whereas one downside of Disc of Insomnia discarding a strong enemy from play is there's a good chance that had a victory point that you didn't earn. Mm-hmm. I think that's a fun little aspect of this card, is that it leaves that victory point on the table, literally, and you can come back for it.
Yeah.
Okay, Survivor card's down. What do you think?
there were some good ones. Nothing like mind blowing. I don't think anything where I'm like, oh, that opened up a new strategy. Other than maybe short supply.
Yeah, right. I think short supply, like we covered this. I think it's like an auto include. For the most part, I thought these were pretty bad or pretty niche. Maybe I will reevaluate that. I did think that Survivor as a class like won the Innsmouth cycle, like had the best cards
Yeah.
and the most fun cards and everything. So it's fine if they don't come out on top in the next cycle. But yeah, I kind of think it's a little. I don't know. I'm a little low on Survivor and Edge of the Earth, but
Plucky maybe. I could see it changing Patrice somewhat, where maybe she can now rely on those initial Mystic cards a little more or something.
yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. It's an amazing Patrice card because between it buffing stats that she likes and being fast and free, right?
Yeah.
Because she has trouble running assets because she has a moment to play them or else she loses her chance and she doesn't have to worry about that. Yeah, I think that's a great Patrice card. You're absolutely right. And I think it's a good card. I don't know for a fact that many people will spend 3 XP on it. But it does seem good. And I'm more excited, I think, about these as like new talents than I have about a cycle of talents in a while.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see if the other classes get theirs too.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be back. We'll be back soon. I think, like we said, we're spacing these videos out a little bit. So subscribe to Optimal Play, refresh our page incessantly, and one day the next video where we talk about we haven't decided what order. We haven't decided what we're doing next. We talk about another class's cards will be up soon. Till then, be optimal.